This is a special broadcast of the Gillen Journal. My name is Talitarianism. I'm the editor and the co-founder of the Gillen Journal. What I'm about to relate to you, I hope and pray that I'm wrong. Although, based on research, talking to cops and military personnel, reporters, and also being in deep prayer for the past month, I've arrived at a conclusion that something truly horrific will happen either this Thursday, the 14th, or the 23rd of October. I'm almost certain it's going to be this Thursday. There's an off chance it's going to be the 23rd. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not here as a prophet. I'm not here as Nostradamus. There's, for me, as far as I'm concerned, the chances of this happening at this point is about 65%. Right? That's very significant. Just to let you know a little bit about myself. I am, currently I'm an IT consultant. So I have DoD clients. I'm also, my background, I used to work in Booz Allen Hamilton, where I directly worked with the Pentagon, every branch of the U.S. military. I was at Fort Belvoir, DSCA, PEOEIS, MWR, DITRA, DTSW. These are the agencies that I've supported as an associate at Booz Allen Hamilton. That's the same company and the same title that Edward Snowden used to work for and have, the title that he used to have, except I didn't have that level of a clearance. But yeah, so, and I also have an MBA from Johns Hopkins, a PMP, Six Sigma certifications. I don't say these things to brag, but just to establish credibility with people that might otherwise want to doubt. Because we live in a time and age where everything is based on whether or not you're, the proximity to mainstream media. And so within that paradigm, independent journalists like myself are kind of dismissed. If we don't play the part, if we don't act the part, then we're kind of not taken seriously. But you have to keep in mind, the people that are currently lying to you, the people that are currently suppressing this information I'm about to share with you, are paid millions of dollars by mainstream media, which is owned by corporate media, corporations, have expensive suits, fancy productions, graphics, all of it, but yet they're propagandizing, and they're not telling you about the potentially life-saving information I'm about to tell you. Now, on the 18th of September, there was an event in D.C. Related to the protest of the January the 6th, people that were locked up as a consequence of the January the 6th protest at the U.S. Capitol. They call that an insurrection, but we'll get to that another time. Let's just say people could disagree with the narrative, especially if you saw the video of the barracks being lifted by the police. But right now, this is something that I don't want to get stuck into that conversation. So I knew that date was BS. So that day, I think it was a couple of days earlier, I was driving by the U.S., by the White House, and I looked to the right and I saw a monument or dedication to the Saratoga. And that just caught my eyes, specifically because my mom passed away from COVID-19 on May 15th of 2020, and Saratoga starts with the S-A-R-A, Sarah. And so it just really struck at me. So I pulled over. I knew that about the USS Saratoga, but there's something else that pulled me about that date as well, about the Saratoga. So what I realized is that the Battle of the Saratoga was a decisive war that was fought during the battle between the colonialists and the British, and that's where Americans basically won the war because of that battle. And it started on September 19th and ended or concluded on October 17th. And that's where I came up with that window, that something's about to happen between those dates. And the reason that I suspected that something was going to happen is because that terror alert I thought was issued as a distraction for some type of a terror attack that was going to take place potentially on the 19th, right? So I had very incomplete information at the beginning, but I kept doing a lot of research. And each time the pieces of the puzzle became more and more. So the picture became more and more evidence. So I started off with thinking that on the night, I thought that on the 19th, the Department of Treasury was going to be attacked, right? I thought there was going to be some type of a terror attack, and then I thought that was going to be some type the false flag that was needed to then for Joe Biden to say a new day of tyranny, you know. But then that night, during the day, nothing happened, so I breathed a sigh of relief. But then I turned on TV, and there's the story about the Evergrande in China. It's kind of like the Lehman Brothers of the U.S. Economy, I guess, and it threatens to tank the global economy. So I said, "Oh, that's it. This is what they're trying to go. They're up to." So I kind of latched onto that narrative, but even that kind of fizzled out over time. But each time though that, so it's not like I was making these bold predictions. I knew that there's something at play. There's something afoot, but I just didn't know what it was. So then, as things kind of kept going, let's just say I have. Let me just, as you know, my profession, I kind of work in that realm, and I overheard a conversation about the Marine Corps Marathon being canceled out of the blue. In fact, if you look on my Twitter account, I beat the Washington Post with that story about 2 hours. But the reason that the Marine Corps Marathon was canceled was because of a safety and security alert. That's concerning. And to cancel something a month out over a potential terror threat, that means it has to be imminent potentially and incredible. So I'm assuming then at that point that mainstream media, given the fact that they used the 18th, the event on the 18th of Saturday, and broadcast that everywhere, told everyone that there's going to be some type of a potential terror attack related to protesters of J6. I thought, well, maybe it's time for them to report this too, except they're not reporting it. They're not reporting it. And I know this because I've talked to a couple of reporters. I mean, they're not reporting because I'm seeing with my own eyes they're not reporting it. In fact, if the couple of times that they did report about this, the Marine Corps Marathon being canceled for because of the safety and security threat, one outlet said it was because of COVID-19. Since when did COVID-19 become a safety and security threat? That's a lie. The disinformation. Mainstream media is nothing but a state mouthpiece. They're no different than North Korea's state propaganda. And I'm talking about CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Washington Post, New York Times, Huffington Post, NPR, The Hill, all of them. Any entity that takes money from corporations is state corporate propaganda. Because they're not going to potentially lose out on millions of dollars of advertising revenue in order to tell the truth. That's why we don't take corporate contributions at the Guillaume Journal. Trust me when I tell you that if I was, we're making a lot of money from Coca-Cola, from Heineken, from Pfizer. Do you think I would even come close to telling you this, the stuff I'm telling you right now? Of course not. Of course not. Excuse me, throat got a little dry over there. So what I realized at that point, so let me kind of continue filling the spaces over here. There was a killing that occurred in Alexandria, Virginia, right out by the BJ's Clubhouse, Sam's Clubhouse, I believe it is. So that night, I kind of put on my my press credential and I went out there. I met a couple of reporters from Channel 4, local Channel 4 and local Channel 7, I think. And one reporter from Channel 4, I said, I said, hey, did you know that there was a terror alert that was issued by DHS? He said, yeah, I know. He goes, I was like, well, wait a minute. Why are you not reporting about it? He goes, I don't know. What? And I talked to a cop. He said he knows about it as well. But I'm not blaming cops, by the way. That they can only do so much, right? And I don't think they have the full picture either. I think what's going on is that, during when the U-2 spy plane was being built, there were thousands of people that were working on it. Only a handful of people knew that it was actually a spy plane that they were worked on. This is called compartmentalization. This is how the whole secret, top secret, Q secret, all that works. Is that everyone is only given this bit of information, and the wider picture is being kept from them. I think that's what's going on right now. But there's some people, I hate to gloat. I'm not trying to gloat. That see the bigger picture at all times. I could connect dots a lot. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm right. Let's call it 30% of the time I'm right. That sounds, to some that might sound kind of low, right? 30% is significant. If I told you that the 30% chance something might happen, you better pay attention to that. Now, anyone that says they have a 100% success ratio is a liar and a false prophet. Only God is 100% true. Every one of us, the rest of us, sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, and we get to these truths about what might happen in the immediate future. Some people based on BS, some people based on spiritual connection, some people based on research, and conversations, and some people with a mix of all of them. I like to think it's not the mix. There's no BS involved in mine. It's more spiritual, prayer, conversation with endless amount of people, people in government, people in media, people in military, cops, doctors, nurses. I'm like the walking Twitter. But this, and then I also do a lot of research. And so what I realized when that they're not going to tell this American public is that this information is being intentionally suppressed. About a week and a half ago, about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I turned on I don't know why I do this to myself. It's like torture, right? I turned on MSNBC, I think it was. It was I might have just been scrolling through Twitter, and I saw Australians being brutalized by the police, except they're not local police. They were imported. They were mercenaries from out of town or out of the country. This is what dictators do all the time. When there's a potential rebellion, Joseph Stalin would bring in, if there's Ukrainians that are potentially rebelling against central authority, he would bring in Siberians. Chinese did this too. When there's a rebellion potentially brewing in Tiananmen Square, they're bringing people from the western part of China. You don't want people that are of the community to police or to potentially brutalize their own people. They're not gonna do it, as what happened with the Arab Spring. So I think his name is Morris, whatever his name is. He flew in. He agreed to fly in a bunch of mercenaries, and that's who's shooting up and killing Australians. That's when it hit me. Oh my God! That's what Biden's doing with the 50,000 Afghan trained, mostly vast majority of them fighting age men that they flew into the United States about 3 weeks ago. That was the reason that they withdrew from Afghanistan so quickly. Is to have a pretext to fly in 50,000 potential terrorists, right? By the way, I'm not anti-refugee. I'm a refugee myself. I'm not a Trumper by any means, but as a refugee, I think countries should they should do proper vetting, right? If you have a house, you're not going to just invite anyone that says they're a refugee. You want to make sure that they're not criminals. That they're actually here for good intentions. You don't just invite anyone off the street. I've done that before, by the way. When I was 2014, I just invited anyone off the streets to live with me, and I'm not BSing. And I had a bunch of stuff stolen from me because of that. So be careful about who you let into your house. America is a great place, a great country, a blessed land, because it's a land of immigrants. But you should do proper vetting. This is not a conservative or liberal position. If you have a house, if you have kids inside your house, you're not going to just let any Joe Blow come inside your house. Just vet them properly, and then still continue to accept immigrants in this country. I'm an immigrant. So 50,000 That number 50,000 should be, if that stands out for you history buffs out there, that's because that's exactly how many stormtroopers that Hitler used. What he did was he trained up Hitler youths over the years. He invested. Took a long time to get where he got. He trained up Hitler youths in the 1920s. They came of age in the 1930s. September 27th, 1933, he burnt down the Reichstag building, and then he loosened 50,000 stormtroopers, SAs. And they had the initiative. They had the upper hand because German military, let's call them the good guys, right? Back then, before all the stuff broke loose, all the Germans were not evil, y'all. Just to let you know, we're doing the same thing in America right now. They complied. A lot of people complied, but look how many Americans have been complying over the years to the evil orders of central government, whether it's segregation, Jim Crow, the treatment, the maltreatment of Native Americans, the countless wars that have been declared in the name of profiteering. How many of us complied to those dictates? You should not judge Germany too much, because we're doing it in America too. And there's a lot of countries doing the same thing throughout the world. It's hard to resist. There's an experiment that was done by Stanley Milgram, in the 1950s. And it was basically somebody in a white lab coat telling people to electrocute somebody behind the curtains. They thought they were electrocuting them each time they got something wrong. 65% of the people went as high as, I believe it was 300 volts. And the guy was screaming. 65% of them, no, I'll take it back. 100% of them went to at least 65 volts. 100%. 65% went to as high as level 10, which was potentially death. They complied. 65% complied with orders to kill other people. So this what to be a human being. Sometimes we comply with authority at our demise. So yeah, we potentially have 50,000 people, Afghanis. Now, this should not be taken as a means of ostracizing all Afghans, or all Muslims. This is, in fact, I hope and pray that I'm protecting Muslims and Afghans, because they're a threat too. If something horrific happens, these 50,000 will be dressed up in military outfit, with sunglasses, with face masks, with tactical unit outfits on, and they're going to dispatch. Then they're going to brutalize Americans. And the good guys, the cops, military, will not be able to differentiate friend from foe. This is why I say this is very important to the police who's listening to this, to the military that's listening to this. If the day of terror attack happens, do not put on your uniform. Put on a white t-shirt. And don't wear sunglasses. Don't wear face masks, because you have to be able. You have to neutralize their advantage, which is their ability to mix in amongst you, make them unable to mix amongst you. Take off your sunglasses. Take off your face masks, and wear only a white t-shirt. That way, the ones that are going to be wearing the sunglasses and face masks, and they approach Americans threateningly, you then have to, my fellow Americans, lock and load. If the day of terror happens and there's people that are coming at you with guns, with face masks on, with sunglasses on, lock and load. And release. You have a right to defend yourselves as Americans. The Second Amendment is important for this reason. I'm against violence, but if somebody comes to my house threatening my children, my kid, my son, and my wife, even though I don't have a my gun is this. But I will do it by any means necessary. I will protect my children. Maybe I might have a second child. We'll see. But I will protect my son and my wife and my loved ones. So if the terror emerges, the attack emerges, and then you see somebody with a police outfit on, with sunglasses, covering their face, coming at you with a gun, you assume they're Afghan terrorists that are coming at you. And that's why I'm saying to the cops and to the military, do not put on sunglasses and face masks. At the very least, don't put on face masks and sunglasses that day. Take it off. And ideally, just don't even go into the uniform. Just put on a white shirt, because that way it becomes easy to identify who's who. Okay, so now I've kind of filled in all these information. The one thing I was missing: what exactly is the attack? I got that information last week. There's a volcano that's brewing on the west coast of Spain. It's called La Palma. This volcano is erupting as it's almost like as beset by the devil. I've never seen a hurricane like this. I mean, it's a volcano like this ever, and it's cutting a swath from the middle of the Canary Island right to the ocean. It's like a butter with being cut through with a knife, hot knife. The threat is, and by the way, the reason that it's doing this level of eruption, it's being engineered by DARPA, by National Science Foundation, and corporate and non-state actors. They're using low frequency and all kinds of, I'm not a scientist on that level. I know they're using frequency to do this, but they're also doing other things. And they've been Google the term transparent Earth. They've been trying to manipulate the Earth's core for a very long time. The magnetic field that comes along with it. So this is what they're doing. That's why there's a volcano erupting like crazy in Hawaii and also in Iceland. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to shear off a huge section of the Canary Island to fall into the ocean. And when that happens, the tsunami that will be created is biblical. It's a killer tsunami. The east coast of the United States will be wiped out. Anyone that's on the coastal line within 100 miles of maybe 100, 200 miles, depending on how large the tsunami is. I saw one deconstruction of this that they said that could be upwards of 3,000 foot wave, 3,000 feet of water, a wall of water that's going to rise up. Now, the highest point in DC is 450 feet. Think about that, 10 times as big, as high as the elevation of DC, close to 10 times as high. Let's say 8.5 times as high of water is going to inundate. So DC is going to be wiped out if this happens. New York is going to be wiped out. Miami is going to be wiped out. Any area near the vicinity of the ocean, right? So I'm talking about like Freedom, Virginia, Woodbridge will be wiped out. Reston will be wiped out as well. It's going to go inland. The only place that's safe will be in the mountain, that high up in the mountains or behind the mountains. So, I think this date of impact is going to be the 14th. And I arrived at that, by the way. Again, a research, prayer, and a video that Christian Lagarde from the IMF, head of the IMF back then, gave in 2014, where she effectively gave the year, the date, and the month that this is going to happen. This has been planned out for a very long time. The people that are doing this are Luciferian in nature. I was in fraternity, by the way. It's called Omega Psi Phi. Fraternities, all of them are rooted in Masonry, right? But we don't know this. I'm not Illuminati. Masons are not Illuminati. Most Masons. It's the core, the top 1% within Masonry, or whatever you want to call them, the 33 degrees. I don't care. These folks, it's the dot within the dot of the Masons, or the dot within the dot of these fraternities. People like Obama, Biden, Trump, Bush, going back to George Washington, all of them were Masons. But these are not really the kingpins. These are the puppets. The kingpins are people that some people we've heard of, the Rothschilds, the British Crown, Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan. Going back, by the way, the Rockefellers, the J.P. Morgan and the Morgan family. These are all Luciferian people. By the way, if you don't know what Mason means, it means Maya, the son of Maya, who had supposedly a son named Hermes, and he was so cunning that he was able to deceive King Solomon in the Bible. That's what they say. So these, and when they call themselves the Illuminated ones, or Illuminati, stands for Illuminated. as in they've been illuminated by the devil, that by their master's knowledge. Kind of going back to the Bible, right? Adam and Eve got deceived into biting from the apple. So that's what it goes back to that. You don't necessarily have to believe in the Bible. And you don't have to believe in the devil either. It doesn't matter what you believe. What you have to worry about is whether or not he believes in you or he sees you. On the flip side, if it doesn't matter if you believe in God, what you should be happy for is that he sees you, right? So the arrogance of human beings, we think that everything is based upon what we believe. Who are we? We're just a grain of salt in this universe. We're nobodies. But we think that we're gods. And that is why we're about to be inundated with this flood. Now, going back to the Bible again for a second. When the story is that Noah, God was about to just inundate the whole world and just be real with it, the human beings. But he saw Noah, he kind of felt bad, and so he saved some folks, and then the rest got drowned out, right? And when that happened, though, at the end, God made a promise he will never do this again. That's what the story is, right? So there's a promise that he will never flood this world again. You know who did not make that promise? The devil, right? And so people that believe in the devil, these Luciferian monsters, are now engineering a tsunami that's going to flood the world. Look, you don't have to believe. I'm not really trying to make this into about spirituality, but these things are happening. Luciferians and people that believe in God kind of go by the same playbook. Just that the difference is people that are Luciferian in nature, they work to invert the teachings of, for example, Yeshua. The things that were taught in the Bible, they use the same thing, but they try to invert it, which is what the devil tries to do as well. Tries to invert the creation of God. So that this day, based on Christian Lagarde's statement and the coded language that she used, they should look it up, by the way. Christian Lagarde IMF speech 2014. This day, I believe, is going to be this Thursday. This Thursday. If you're anywhere near the coastlines, go inland and go high, go into the mountains. If you disregard this, I'm going to just end it with this. And then I want to do a quick message to the men and women of the United States military. My background, like I said, is business consulting. Part of that is doing risk mitigation. And so I will kind of give you a little speech. Well, first, let me start off with this. If your toilet, there's a 4% chance your toilet is going to overflow if you go out of town for a month. Do you ignore it? The answer, I hope, is no. Now, what do you do, though? Do you pay thousands of dollars for a 4% chance? Maybe, maybe not. But the easiest thing to do is just turn the water off. To just mitigate your risk from 4% to 0 by doing something that just did nothing. It cost you nothing. So, in that way, let's say, even though I feel like I'm 65% confident this is going to happen this Thursday, let's call it 20% chance it's going to happen. Do you ignore it? At 20%? You ignore that, man, you're playing with fire at that point. So what do? What I did, I can't tell you what to do. I took out cash as much as possible. I filled in gas tanks on both cars, even though we're only going to most likely take one. But, just to be safe, I filled up both tanks and bought enough groceries for to last at least 2 weeks. Food, water, toilet paper, all of it. And all of it is in the car, ready to go. Obama, crazy Obama. But when he said, fired up, ready to go, oh, I'm fired up as soon as something. And we're not going to wait, though. If you wait until the tsunami alert goes off, you're dead. I'm being dead serious. You're going to be stuck on the highways, and then the water's going to come over and just sweep you out into the ocean. So you need to be proactive. I'll just end it with this for the general public. If you do something, as in go to the mountains, buy food, groceries, fill up the tank. If nothing happens, you're good. Worst comes to worst, you just donate the food. You need the gas anyways, and you still have money in your pocket. Just put it back in your account. If something happens, you're blessed. Now on the flip side, if you do nothing and nothing happens, you're good. If you do nothing and something happens, you're dead. So I hope you take this message very seriously and take care of yourself. If you go to the GHION journal.com, that's GHION journal.com, there's an article that says tsunami alert. I believe, let me double check. Yeah, tsunami advisory. Okay, I'm going to make that the feature one again. Yesterday I wrote an article that's kind of opened up about my journey towards healing. I think that's the type of conversation we need to have going forward. Instead of yelling at each other, we need to really have these conversations where we talk about healing. But I'm going to make this one. So it's called Tsunami Advisory. Look east at the lake of fire flowing into the ocean from La Palma volcano. That's the title. Read that. And then take action, which is what I just outlined. And then share that article everywhere, yo. Everywhere. I'm going to, before I talk about the men and women in the U.S. military, there's a link in that article. If you scroll down, right after the last video, the update for it says there's a verse that I put in from the Bible. If you're an atheist, don't get offended about these things. If I quoted Thoreau, which I do a lot, you don't get offended. So I get offended if I quote the Bible. I'm not trying to impose my will on you. Trust me, I'm not. But anyways, all that being said, right below it is a video that I did called "People of the Temple," and below that there's something that says "Urgent." I'm asking people to contribute to an early warning fund. So, look, I've tried. I've given out over 4,000 cards, lower cards like this, right? Except these were customized to warn about this potential tsunami that's coming. I've walked everywhere. I'm exhausted. I can't do this on my own anymore. So I'm asking you to contribute to the fund so that we could purchase ads on Facebook, Twitter. I've done this already out of my own pocket, but I can't continue to bleed our savings to save other people. It's not really fair for all the burden of that to go on one person. So I'm asking everyone to contribute so that we could continue to propagate this information so that other people will know. All right. I'm going to end this. By the way, if you go to, like I said, if you go to the bottom of that article, not all the way to the bottom, but yeah, even all the way to the bottom, but within that article, you'll see like areas where you could contribute. So I hope you're able to contribute as you can. Lastly, this is a message to the men and women in the United States military. I wrote I think it was actually the first one that I wrote was back in January. I amended that the date on that article in April because I updated the article. But the original article was actually published back in I think late December or maybe early January, and it was called "Dispatch the Men and Women of the U.S. Military." And I said back then, you about to get be met with immoral orders, and you had to defy immoral and illegal. I had no idea back then what those were going to be. I thought it was going to be all related to the vaccines. And cause some of it is. But it's going to be other things that's going to be made evident over time. So every one of you pledged to preserve and protect the U.S. Constitution. This what's going on right now is the destruction of the U.S. Constitution. But you also made a pledge, an oath to God. God, honor, country. Right? I've been asking a lot of military folks, say, if you had a choice between God and country, which one do you pick? I'd say 98% have said God. Because a country without God is not a country, it's a prison. We'll have to find that out very shortly. So, a moment has come to decide. A red line is now about to be drawn. On one side is saluting and following the orders of Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris, who, by the way, I believe is about to become the next president. If this tsunami attack sponsored by the U.S. government, sponsored by the Chinese government, global governments around the world, and their corporate owners, their plutocrat owners, these Luciferian societies, then that red line will be drawn between obeying the Luciferian societies and obeying, let's say, a 10-star general. Not me, God. Now, if why do you think I'm able to speak this confidently? Go to the U.S. Pentagon. Talk to anyone without any fear. Do you see any fear in my eyes? Now, you know what usually happens to people that tell these types of truths? They get assassinated, or they get silenced. How come I'm not being silenced? Because I walk in faith in God. I have no fear of no man. Zero. 1,000 might come on my right side, 10,000 on my left side. They will all fall by the wayside. It's not because I'm somebody special. It's just I planted myself in God. That's the choice that everyone here listening to this video has. Plant yourself in God. And so when that moment has come, choose God or choose the dictates of public serpents like Biden/Kamala, Macron, Boris Johnson, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Abiy Ahmed. They're all Luciferian secret society members, all of them. I know because I know their little secret handshakes. When they do this, hand over hand, or they do little gestures with their hand. I used to do that as a fraternity. That's the secret society. They're all in it. George Carlin once said, "It's a big club and you ain't in it. We're not in it. We want to be underwater for it. So it's better to rise up, or we're going to drown down." Benjamin Franklin once said, we should either hang together or hang apart. Well, let me amend that. We either come together or we drown apart. I'm going to include a video at the very end of this. 2 videos. One to the U.S. military. It's a narration that was done by Cassandra Torres, I think her name is, a U.S. Air Force vet, of an article that I wrote to the men and women in the U.S. military. And another one is going to be I guess a testimony of sorts. It's a deconstruction of Revelation from my point of view. I'm not saying that I'm right about these things, but we all kind of interpret the Bible in our own way. By the way, I want to add one more thing to the men and women in the U.S. military and our patriots. When that day comes, I've talked to a lot of Eritrean former soldiers, and this is the same thing that the Vietnamese did as well. Americans did this as well, and so did Ethiopians in Ottawa. The weakness of a centralized army is a decentralized militia. Decentralized. So the U.S. military, if this terror attack happens and the Afghanis become the centralized army, right? You have to decentralize. As in, look, the men and women of the U.S. military, it is now evident the generals have sold all of you out. Every top brass is a traitor and a seditious bastard. They should be imprisoned for what they're doing. They should be imprisoned for what they're doing. They're treasonous monsters that put careerism ahead of loyalty to this country. Same thing with Biden, Kamala, mainstream media, anyone that knows about this, and they're not doing anything about it, is a treasonous bastard. Now, I believe in tempering justice with mercy, but there will be justice for this. There will be justice. So what I would suggest is, if that moment comes, decentralize and form groups of 30. Groups of 30. And then happy hunting. The time to defend America, the time to defend our homeland, the time to defend humanity has come upon us. Rise up, or you will drown down. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless my home, my birthland, Ethiopia. May God bless humanity. Peace and God bless.
Dispatch to the U.S. military. You must honor your oath and be true to God over followed immoral orders. Written by Teodros Fikramiriam, narrated by Krishanda Torres. I'm writing this to the brave men and women of the United States military, the few and the proud who put on the uniform to protect this nation from internal and external enemies. A time has come to defy immoral orders and to stand up to tyranny before the experiment in self-governance is aborted and turned into a dystopian state of totalitarianism. You see what is taking place. Slowly but surely, our rights are being stripped away as fascists tighten their grips and eradicate the very freedoms that made America the shining city on the hill. I am not writing this for effect, nor is my intention to be hyperbolic. I would rather dedicate my energies to raising my 21-month-old son and enjoying the fruits of my labor after enduring a 2-year bout of homelessness. But my conscience won't let me rest, because I see where this is headed. I arrived in America in 1983 as a refugee because my once homeland, Ethiopia, was decimated by Marxist monsters who used the pains of the people to gain power, only to wage total war against the citizenry. I know firsthand the destructive nature of consolidated powers. Sadly, the United States has succumbed to the very evils that dismantled the land that gave birth to me. I turn to the U.S. military and those who served honorably because I don't know who else to appeal to. Our government has made the fateful decision of treating we the people as enemies, as they mount a vicious campaign of mass vaccinations that promises to revive segregation in the 21st century. By choice or by force, the ruling class are intent on ensuring that every man, woman, and child is jabbed with an experimental vaccine that has limited upside and limitless risks. To effect this outcome, they are willing to shred the U.S. Constitution and the Geneva Conventions alike. What is taking place in our country is no different than the experiments that were carried out against undesirables in Nazi Germany and in Ireland in the 1960s. At least 33% of Americans are dead set against getting injected with the snake oil that is being offered by Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson. Instead of listening to the will of the people and pausing to ensure the efficacy of these nostrums, Joe Biden and his ilk in D.C. are pushing all our limbs on the tables as they gamble with our lives in order to profit biotech corporations. There is a reason why most of us, including many who are serving in the military, are beyond hesitant when it comes to getting jabbed. Yet politicians, pundits, and opinion leaders arrogantly dismiss our concerns and resort to censorship, propaganda, and intimidation to compel a reticent public to become lab rats of pharmaceutical corporations. If there is a hill to die on, if there is a time to rise up and defend America from internal and external enemies, this is the ridge and the time to do so. I am very well aware of what I am calling for and the dangers that I am placing myself in for advocating what the founders of this great nation explicitly called for. But I place myself in the company of men like Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine, who fiercely resisted despotism and championed insurrections to ensure liberty. In the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson wrote, "Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government." If now is not the time to cash the check that was endorsed by Jefferson and founders who feared totalitarianism, the time will never come to be. I know the risk I am asking the men and women of the military to take. Defying chain of command and disobeying direct orders has untold consequences. Yet, I ask you to remember the oath that you took when you raised your hand to God and swore to defend America. There is no need to look in far-off lands. The enemies are at our shores and in action will lead to the demise of our nation and the abrogation of everything we love about this blessed land. We are being ruled by an illegitimate government. The approval rating of Congress is south of 7%, and the newly elected president enjoys the support of less than half of all Americans. The very reason why the colonists rebelled against King George is before us at this moment. We are being taxed without representation. We are being governed without consent, and the United States has lost her sovereignty to global leaders who are more worried about inflating their profits than they are in protecting our rights. Like toads in simmering water, multinational plutocrats are increasing the temperature, hell-bent on boiling away our freedoms. In the coming weeks and months, you will be asked to take actions that you know in your hearts to be immoral and unconstitutional. I ask you to resist instead of saluting and following orders. You are the demarcation between liberty and tyranny. If you do not draw a red line, in short order, America will become a wasteland of authoritarianism. You signed up to protect our nation from despotism, not to be the enforcers of deports. If you do not take drastic action soon, it will be your children they will be coming for to enforce an agenda meant to turn human beings into operating systems. When I was homeless for 2 years, I had the honor of calling dozens of veterans who served with honor and distinction my friends and neighbors. When I had nothing to eat, it was veterans who fed me. When I wept alone, it was veterans who encouraged me. I myself had a chance to attend West Point in 1993 before foolish life decisions forever closed that door. But God's providence made it possible for me to support the U.S. military as a high-priced Booz Allen Hamilton consultant and a low-paid mess cook at Harvest Farm in Wellington, Colorado. I wrote an article titled Silent Salute and a poem dedicated to homeless veterans while I myself was homeless in 2016. I turned to the same honorable soldiers, leathernecks, airmen, and seamen whom I had the honor of serving in a professional and impoverished capacity to beseech you to take action. A lot of active duty and retired personnel follow my writing, and I've befriended countless hundreds over the past 20 years. I ask you to look into your hearts, to pray earnestly, and then do what you feel is right in your hearts. The fate of this nation, as well as that of humanity, may very well rest with the next decision that you take. Trust me when I tell you this, there is a 10-star general who observes all. You are better off earning the scorn of man than you are incurring the wrath of he who gives and takes life. The same Thomas Jefferson who authored our country's Declaration of Independence also stated, "One man with courage is a majority." I am not looking to a general disconnected from the men and women he leads as he sips cognac in an air-conditioned war room to lead this charge on behalf of humanity. I am looking for a colonel, a captain, a major, to take a bold step and inspire his men forward. It just takes one man to stand up, and the rest will follow. Douglas MacArthur once said, "You are remembered for the rules you break." And now the Silent Salute poem. To the soldiers who sacrificed, did their duty without asking, I express outrage against injustice. Over immoral wars and endless carnage, I am speaking out for you in the process. Veterans in the end understand one thing. Their fellow men were never their enemy. To this day, fierce rivals from past conflicts embrace after the last bullets have been fired. Soldiers salute and do their duty that is best. The sorrows they go through alone. Trauma induced by bodies and reduced humanity, only to come back home and encounter Satan's embrace. Flashbacks, prompting cold sweats, bullets and blood droplets, too much for the mind to process. Those who die in wars are fortunate. It's the veterans, the survivors, who carry the burdens of these remembrances. Fallen comrades and innocent children indiscriminately swallowed whole by turbulence, tears mixing with bloodstains, cries drowned out by battle drums. War is humanity's utmost blemish. Concealed by propaganda and theatrics, patriotism birthing negligence, our conscience is subverted into ignorance. As we enjoy disengagement's bliss, veterans suffer depression's kiss. Politicians, profiteers, and Hollywood glorifying war horrors by bending reality, obfuscating suffering with special effects and rhetoric. But to the soldier, their truth is the opposite. Rat-a-tat-tat, bullets shattering God's presence. Untold masses disappearing into graves in silence. We wave flags thanking them for service. They shiver alone, bearing the cost of compliance. Final judgments by way of triggers and buttons. Only to come back home. Shock and awe replaced by shock trauma. Nightmares that never end. Being continually transported back to mayhem. The battlefield redrawn into the mind synapses. Piercing quietness with shrieks and terrors. Spouses who grow estranged. Children unable to comprehend. Concern pixelating into absence. Loneliness the only friend that remains. The proud and few become islands. Invisible wounds breaking cognizance. This is why so many end up homeless. Many more embracing suicide's cuddle. Despair muffles life and blends into darkness, to be met by society's mind-numbing indifference. We step over them daily, once warriors turned into the indigent. Salutes being returned with diffidence. Yet in this silence, I stand for you. May God forever bless you. When you are broken, may you mend into fullness. Sergeant Black in D.C., Vietnam War survivor. Gunny Stevens in Greenville, Korean War survivor. Derek in Colorado, Iraq War survivor. Frank and Ankeny, Iowa, World War II survivor. Countless others who I have met, had the honor of sharing meals with. May your struggles be fleeting, but your blessings be eternal. In silence, I salute you.
It says God's chosen people. That's everyone. If you have kids, do you choose just one, or do you choose all your kids to love them equally? So anyone that tries to co-opt that message of we're the chosen people to mean that they're chosen above the rest are supremacists. Hello, Zionism. So now let's get to the truth of the matter. Let's talk about the Bible, right? By the way, this segment is called Gideon's sword for a reason. The S is lower cap, and then everything else, and then word. S and then word. The Gideon's sword was actually his word, right? Bibles as parables. He didn't pick up a sword to actually stab somebody. It's how he spoke. Prophets back in the day, when they spoke with fire or with water as they chose. For example, Daniel spoke with fire. Who's another one? Let me give you another prophet. Samuel spoke with fire. Jesus spoke with water and fire. His name was changed to Jesus, by the way. We call him Jesus, and his name was Yeshua. But the Roman Empire, Constantinople, co-opted Christianity. So, a quick historical lesson. Ethiopia accepted Christianity in 33 AD. 280 years later, Constantinople co-opted Christianity and basically whitewashed. So they basically covered their pagan religion with Christian and laid over Christianity on top of it. So December 25th, Christmas. Oh, that existed before. That was the day of solstice. That has nothing to do with the birth of Yeshua. Easter. Easter has nothing to do with the Last Supper. It has everything to do with Esther Day. It's a Roman festival that honored the goddess of harvest, right? Catholicism in that way is the same thing. Now, I have to pause here and say, hey, when I talk about these things, which are could be backed up by fact, then I do so not necessarily to diminish people that believe in those things, because identity is very important in that way. But just to speak the truth of the matter. So Catholicism was basically an inversion of the teachings of Yeshua. You ever notice that, like, for example, and even then, I'm not even sure, sometimes I struggle with whether or not we're supposed to have crosses on, because that's a symbol. But I still have it on, right? So there's a cross. One thing you don't see on here is Yeshua, Jesus, well, even let's call him Jesus, I guess, for the sake of this I don't say lesson, because I'm not a teacher, just an observer. But so this doesn't have him on it, because he rose and defeated death. But the Catholic one has him still on the cross. They're saying that he didn't defeat death. And the Vatican, which, by the way, is walled off, is the most powerful nation state, and the richest, the wealthiest. Now, think about it this way. If Yeshua went around speaking against the evils of money, and he lived among the people, do you think that he would be living in castles and behind the walls of the Vatican, apart from the people? Do you think that he would say nothing as Catholic priests molest kids left and right? Do you think he would say nothing as the Catholic Church in the 1930s sat back and crossed their hands and did nothing as Hitler was, gassing millions of Jews? Do you think that Jesus would have actually taken the wealth of Jews after they passed away? Of course not. But that's what the Catholic Church does. And they also send missions throughout the world to whitewash the true story of Yeshua. So I'll get to that in a little bit. So Isaiah 66, I opened this up just randomly yesterday, and this is where I landed on. This is how I read the Bible, by the way. I just opened it up recently. Just randomly. And 66:17 says, "For I will create a new heaven and a new earth. The past events will not be remembered or come to mind. Then be glad and rejoice forever in what I'm creating. For I will create Jerusalem to be a joy and its people to be a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and be glad in my people. The sound of weeping and crying will no longer be heard in her." By the way, Jerusalem is humanity. Again, Ethiopia is humanity. Zion is humanity, right? It's not just to say we're a part, because I like to think of God as the one. I don't want to even equate it to this, but if capitalism is privatization of wealth, and socialism, let's say, call it the supposedly is the opening where everyone is equal. Now, in theory, that sounds beautiful, right? But I've seen the true evils of socialism too in Ethiopia. The people that say that they're for this, they're for socialism, they come in and they monopolize, centralize power, and they end up taking money for themselves. It's no different. I wrote an article once that said communism and capitalism are the same thing, because one believes in the centrality of corporations, capitalism. The other one believes in the centrality of the state, and both end up taking money from the people and impoverish the masses or the people. But in theory, socialism says, in theory, it's beautiful, and so is, in theory, capitalism is beautiful too. In reality, you see where we're at with those two. But socialism says we're all, so to be like they say Jesus was a socialist. And I consider Jesus to be just an open human being. He wasn't an ideologue. In fact, he railed against ideology, to be honest with you. But anyway, so Jerusalem, when I say I will rejoice in Jerusalem, it's humanity. Um, the sound of weeping and crying will no longer be heard in her. In her, a nursing infant will no longer live only a few days, or an old man will not live out his days. Indeed, the youth will die at 100 years, and the one who misses 100 years will be cursed. People will build houses and live in them. People will build houses and live with them. These days, we live in a system where people build houses and the millionaires live in them, and then the people that build houses eventually become homeless. We live in a very unjust world. But the time comes, people will build houses and live in them. They will plant vineyards and eat their fruit, as in you will eat from the labor of your hands, right? This is why welfare is it's like the apple being given by the devil. Anyone that tries to take away the incentive to work and instead tries to make you dependent on them, excuse me for a second, is selling the devil's, I used to call things the devil's loop. The devil's loop is that anything that can entrap you, right? So welfare is a devil's loop. They're trying to take away your independence and put you into the bondage of dependency. So it's better if you give people the means for them to take care of themselves, which is what America doesn't do, which is what communism doesn't do, because they want us to be in bondage to the state. They will not build and others will live in them. They will not plant and others eat. See, they will not build and others live in them. The 1% will not live in the houses that we build and for us to become homeless. They will not plant and others eat. In other words, the 99% will not be picking fruits and working, like to the point of slave wages, so that those food could be eaten by the wealthy, and then the rest get crumbs. For my people live lives will be like the lifetime of a tree. My chosen ones, humanity, will be like the lifetime. Will be that my chosen ones will fully enjoy the work of their hands. Think about that. We'll fully enjoy the work of our hands. How many of us right now are working, busting our ass 9 to 5, and living paycheck to paycheck, and being bracketed by financial anxieties? They will not labor without success, or bear children destined for disaster. How many people are born into poverty? For there will be a people blessed by the Lord, along with their descendants. Even before they call, I will answer. While they are still speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb will feed together. So that, to me, that signifies, for example, people that work on Wall Street, that make their money by impoverishing the sheep of humanity. The time will come where those that seek to be forgiven will give up their ways, and they will exist side by side with the very people that they're impoverishing, so that the wolf and the sheep, they're eating side by side. And I've seen, by the way, I've seen some aspects of it. When I was in Colorado, there's a place called Foco Cafe, where people ate for free and donated as they could. And rich and poor ate in the same place. Homeless and were very wealthy people came and sat down and ate together. So that wolf and sheep could eat together. It's parables. And the lion will eat straw like the ox, right? And as in will be made equal. We'll be eating of the same. These are parables. But the serpent's food will be dust. You know why the serpent's food will be dust? Because there are some who are so evil that they are not able to get over themselves, right? That's why they're the snakes. They crawl around on their belly, hissing and taking from everybody, and living like royalty. And this world, right, by the way, as it is, honors those people. As I'm talking about Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, the Rothsteins, I think it is, in England. And please accuse me of anti-Semitism, because I'm a Semite. I could trace my ancestry directly to Asitodros, who could trace his ancestry directly to to Solomon and Sheba. There's a lot of people that go on, Zionists that go around saying anti-Semite, and they're not even Semite. Now, I'm not saying that to be divisive. Sometimes even speaking these truths could be divisive because speaking against a lie, it creates a backlash from people. But the truth is, a lot of the so-called Jews in Israel, they cannot trace their roots to Semites. A lot of them trace their roots to Anunnaki Jews who converted in Europe in the 1800s, I believe it is. And before that, there were gypsies and other religions. So Zionism is a racist ideology that is built by co-opting the stories. It's a cultural appropriation of Beta Israel and people that lived in that area, in Israel and Kemet and Ethiopia that were that practiced Judaism. There's 12 tribes of Israel. Anunnakis were not. Now, let me just say this though. If go back to, I believe that human beings started as one, and then we became many. So the bloodlines of humanity does not start at Solomon and Sheba. It starts with Adam and Eve, right? And it starts at one creator. So we're all we're all like I said, we're all Ethiopian in that way. But for some that try to weaponize the Bible to fit their own agenda, there's a part of Matthew's and in Luke where it says, "What is done in the dark shall come out in the light of day." This truth is coming out. Zionists and those who try to weaponize the word anti-Semitism are actually the biggest anti-Semites of them all. Because when they lock up Palestinians who could trace their ancestry to Semites, when they sterilize Beta Israel Ethiopians against their will so that they can't have any kids, that's anti-Semitism. Practiced by people that cannot even trace their ancestry to Semites. And it's very sad that some, and by the way, I don't mean to paint with a broad brush. There's a lot of Jews that I know that are anti-Zionists. I actually interviewed one, Rabbi Weiss, David Weiss. He's a straight up anti-Zionist. He says that the creation of a political Israel is against the Torah because the people of the Jewish people are supposed to wait for their Messiah to arrive before they have a land. And even then, it won't be a political land. It will just be the renewal of earth in a new way. So Zionists who co-opted the story of Beta Israel and the 12 tribes of Israel created a racist apartheid state and are locking up Palestinians in the ghettos of Gaza and West Bank, are in fact continuing the legacy of Hitler in that way. I know we're not supposed to use Hitler in any way to give an analogy, but a sin is a sin, right? It's biblical too. A sin is a sin. A sin against one, no matter how small it is equal to the sin of a murderer. It says, I never got that. I understand now. You can't negotiate as to what a sin is. If one is killed, it's the same as killing a million. And that says that in the Bible. It says that in the Quran. It says that in the Torah. So yeah, when political Israel indentures or locks up millions of Palestinians behind the walls of Gaza, behind the walls of West Bank, takes their lands, basically brands them. Almost there was one image that I saw. They were making them wear yellow armbands. That is what the Nazis did. Jesus Christ. How do people... Well, I get it though. There's some people that when they feel pains, some people invert the pain and make sure that it doesn't happen to others. Other people revert to pain and pass on the pains. But like I said, I don't believe in collective judgment. So this is not all Jews doing this. This is not all people that could trace their ancestry to the Anunnakis that are doing this. These are some that are doing this. No different than in Catholics. Not all Catholics are going around molesting children, but some in position of power are doing this. And not all Muslims are terrorists, but some do in fact invert the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad to enact bloodshed around the world. The word jihad was never, ever about killing people. It was always the struggle within. Some co-opted that meaning to give license to the killing of unarmed men and women. That is an act of I don't know, a sin that is spitting on the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. And people that do that are in fact terrorists. So you get to, I'm going to try to wrap this up shortly. There's a part in, let me look it up real fast. There's a part in Revelations where it talks about the synagogue of Satan. Hold on a second. All right. So Revelations 2:9 reads, I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them that say that they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Why is that important? Because the synagogue of Satan is talking about those who say they're Jews when they're not. But it goes beyond that. It talks about those who say they're Christian and they're not. Those who say they're Muslim and they're not. Those who use the teachings of messages of peace to enact warfare around the world. These are the serpents that will be eating dust very soon because they will not give up their power in order to be forgiven. So then I pivot back to this. Men and women in the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Leathernecks, hooah. There's there's a state saying when I used to support the military, duty, honor, country. Right? Why is country last? Because above country is your honor, which you're supposed to honor. The things that the principles that you hold dear and near. That's why if you're given a command that you believe to be dishonorable, you're supposed to disobey. Right? But above honor is duty. And now MacArthur noted that that duty is to God. So it's really, as far as I'm concerned, God, honor, country. The time ever comes that you had to choose between God and country. Who do you think you're supposed to listen to? I'm gonna read another. I'm gonna wrap this up with a poem. And what this message that I'm giving to the men and women of the United States military is the same to the men and women of every military across the world. There's a higher power. Let's say there's a 5-star general, and you're supposed to salute and obey. Then there's a president or a prime minister you're supposed to salute and obey. There is a 10-star general. It's not me. I'm just a husband. I'm just a husband who loves to write. In fact, this message I'm kind of giving to you, let's just say I'm just passing it along. But this 10-star general watches and observes all. That's why I'm able to, by the way, say these things without fear of repercussions. I gave my life to God. So I'm good. What happens in life is that we, out of fear of reprisal, we comply. But there's going to come a time where you have to choose either compliance or defiance. And when that time comes, and that time only God knows, but that time will be known in the hearts of many. When that time comes, choose defiance over those who have very malicious intentions, and comply with the God that's in your heart. And rather, if you're an atheist, then choose to comply with the love that's in your heart. God is love. One of my favorite singers says, God is love. IBT. Fikr is exaggerating now. God is love. So listen to the love inside your heart. Do not obey anything that smacks of or smacks against God. So that's number one. Number two, this is going out. So by the way, that's not only to the Navy, the Army, Air Force, Marines, not only for America, but throughout the world, including the men and women serving in the military in Ethiopia, but also to the police, also to those who are the keep society afloat, right? The enforcers of law. Before you enforce, you don't enforce all laws. If you look within yourself and say this doesn't make any sense, defy. All right. I will take the story. I'll talk about the story one of these days. But up until 2015, 16, 15, I used to hate the police. Until one, Officer Buford saved my life. Buford, by the way, means beautiful fort. He became a beautiful fort to me. So I'm here giving this message because of Buford. So in that way, to the police officers and to every military personnel, be a Buford, a beautiful fort to humanity. Do not be the enforcers of evil. All right. And the next part of this message is to the rest of us, all of us, the totality of humanity. We are being led into an oncoming cliff without even knowing it. That's the power of media, by the way. There was a speech that Christine Lagarde gave in 2014. If you look it up, I'll post it eventually on the same YouTube video and in the article as well, where she said we had 7 good years of peace. No, we had 7 years of hardship. Right? This is in 2014. So she was talking about the economic implosion of 2007. She said we have 7 years of hardship. Now we're going to have 7 years of prosperity. And then she leaves it at that. And then she starts talking in hidden coded messages. I know it's for intended audiences, but guess what? There are some people that could pick up on these. You know why I could pick up on these things? Because one, I joined a fraternity. And one particular Mason made the mistake of giving me his secrets without knowing. I'm not a Mason. When I was in Georgia in 1996, I was at my foolish days. I was at this place called Freaknik. Things I did as a child. Anyways, I let in this guy. I thought he was a fraternity brother, and he said, "Hey, what are you? Whatever." And I said, "Oh, I'm such and such, George Mason University." And what he heard was Mason. I was just saying I'm a fraternity from George Mason. So he said, "Oh," and then he opens up and starts telling me secrets about Masonry. All I need is a dot. I'll take that dot into a mile. So I started doing research after that. The Masons are called Masons for a reason. The sons of Maya. And Maya was a goddess, quote unquote goddess. She had a son named Hermes. And Hermes was supposed to be so intelligent that he fooled Solomon into building a temple made out of cedar trees and treasures. And he's fooled, supposedly that's what they say. Solomon did make this mistake, by the way. He fooled Solomon into building a temple made out of a mega church. He made a mega church. That's not the temple he was supposed to build. The temple he was supposed to build was supposed to be the people. The people are the temple. We are the temple. People are the temples, right? Where our bodies are temples that we're supposed to take care of and honor so that we can honor God. But Hermes supposedly, and Solomon did, by the way, fall for that. Well, maybe it was. Maybe there's truth in what the Masons believe. So it was so diabolically smart that he got him to work with the Tyres, modern day Lebanon, who were, back then were kind of seen as pagans of sort. And so he builds this mega church. And so Masons, the sons of Maya, believe that Hermes was the one that deceived Solomon. And so the wisest man in the Bible got defeated by the wisdom, the cunning of Hermes. So when they call themselves the sons of Maya, it's for that reason. They're honoring Hermes and they're honoring her. The sons of Maya, or the Masons, eventually got co-opted themselves. In the 1800s, I forgot, it starts with B. I don't really feel like looking into it right now. The sons of the Masons got co-opted by a strain of evil that were Luciferian. They believed and honored Lucifer. And so what they did was they co-opted, the same way the Vatican co-opted Christianity. These people co-opted Masonry. Masonry was a secret society that was built upon knowledge of how to construct stones, the keystones. That's why they had that little Mason tool that looks like a pyramid with a G in the middle. They're basically saying our knowledge is God. Blasphemous, but not like diabolically blasphemous, diabolically evil. Then you have a strain of the Freemasons and what came after, people like General Pike, Albert Pike. He's the only man who has a statue. He's a Confederate general. It is completely inept. But he was a Mason. He wrote a very powerful book of the Masons. So he has a statue right in front of the U.S. Capitol. A traitor has a statue in front of the Confederate. Why is that? Because he was a Mason. Why is not too many people protesting that one? When he was an evil guy. I was a straight up racist. But because he's a Mason, he's always being protected by the media, by the status quo. He wrote a book that basically foretold everything that's been taking place: World War I, World War II, and the next iteration of what's coming up. If you go to Google and you type in Georgia Godstones, there's a mission statement. I'm going to read it from an descending order, right? No, ascending order. So rule of passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. It's not bad. Unite humanity with a living new language. Unite new language. Maybe they mean like emojis. That's the new language. Then guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Guide reproduction wisely. That sounds like what's it called? Eunegic. Eunegic? I can never say that word. Eunegics. I can't say that word. You know what I mean. Not everything has to be flawless. I won't edit this. So yeah, they're basically saying it's like what the Nazis were doing. They're trying to like selectively reproduce and create a super race. Lastly, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Back then, when this was constructed, the population of the Earth was around 5 billion. Now we're at 7 billion. So what they're saying is we're going to decimate. You know what decimate means? I think it means to kill off 90%. It might be kill off 10%. But it's not like to eradicate, as to get rid of a portion of people. In this case, they're talking about decimating or annihilating 90% to arrive at 500 million. These are the Godstones. I'm not making this up. Look it up. Georgia Godstones. So you fast forward to where we're at now, at all the craziness of the world. And you have people that are pushing a vaccine without the due diligence that a vaccine requires. They're expediting everything. Usually, there's 3 levels of testing required. Phase 1 is usually on animals, which I understand. Peter, I get you. And then you go through all kinds of tests to ensure a level of efficacy. And then FDA goes through and reviews it. There's peer reviews, murder campaigns to make sure that these things don't have any unintended consequences or unintended side effects. So it passes phase 1, you then go to phase 2 clinical trials. And that's usually done on a small sample of people that have a disease, right? That are sick or a subset. The same thing, it's repeated. You go through and you test, you do the statistical analysis. You have to ensure that the population size is a sample representative of the overall population. These are statistics. When polls are done, they always say population size versus population, right? And if the population size, sample size versus population size, right? If the sample size is not representative of the overall population, that poll is always dismissed, right? And they always say plus or minus 2 or 3 points, because there's always going to be a chance of a mistake. It's not 100%. There's no statistics that's 100%, right? So you always run the risk of being wrong. Hello, Trump, when people said Hillary's going to win. So that's phase 2. And then phase 3. So in each case, there's rigorous testing to ensure that people are not missing something. So now with this vaccine, one phase, one trial in each of the cases when it comes to Pfizer and everything else. And there's no inspection of the long-term consequences of these things. And I'm not trying to, by the way, I'm not an anti-vaxxer per se. I mean, I think we should, when it comes to flu shots, for example, some people choose not to take it. That's their choice, right? There's other things though, like for example, I had an infection in my knee. I chose to take medicine. And when it comes to like measles, I think it is. When I know for a fact that there's certain things that could lead to the harm of humanity and me as well, my family and I, then I'll take medication as long as it's proven. I'm not going to be a guinea pig, right? But in this case, that's what they're advocating. They're pushing through with the quickness, something that usually takes years to ensure. And like I said, my mom passed away from COVID, so I'm not minimizing the hardship that this is causing and the human suffering. I suffer from that too because I miss my mom. At the same token, though, I also look at this with a clear-eyed perspective. This virus, I think, is the lethality rate is 1%. That's high, but 99% survive it. My sister and her whole family had it, and she survived. Well, it was horrible, but I'll take my risk on that as opposed to just gambling on a vaccine that I don't know the science behind. But yet, everyone's lining up to push this. So why? This is where I return to the Bible. There's a time where people look. Let me actually refer to history books. In the 1800s, Paris was really 2 cities in one. You had Paris for the rich, and you had Paris for the rest. You had Paris for the wealthy as heck, and the Paris for the 99% that was like, it was slums. They were living in slums. At a certain point, they got so fed up that they rose up. And when they rose up, the evil that was unleashed, they went around chopping the heads off of every rich person that they could find, every aristocrat. Every day was a cutting day. I don't endorse that, by the way. Uh, it says vengeance is mine for a reason. Vengeance is God's. Judgment is God's. I would, for me, if I had it, if we were able to have some type of modicum of peace on this earth, I would forgive everybody, that ever committed every war, every one of them. But I'm just a husband. That's not up to me. And a lot of times, by the way, it's not even God that's making them suffer. The hell that people go through is because they don't know how to forgive themselves. Adam and Eve, I don't think got kicked out of Eden explicitly. It was their shame that made them lose the Eden, the peace in their mind. You know what I'm saying? So, but like I said, but during the French Revolution, the people got pitchfork crowd, literally grabbed the guillotines and started just cutting off people's heads. So the rich are terrified of this, the 1% or the 0.1%, because 0.1% can't subdue 99%. Let's say a couple of thousand cannot subdue a billion, 7.5 billion. What they could do though is, so the rich always do this. They always either make money, maximize profits, or mitigate risk, as in minimize risk. So they have the money already. What do they fear? Well, they've been building bunkers for the past, I don't know how many years, getting ready for an eventuality where if there's chaos, they could withdraw to their bunkers and live out comfortably until they can emerge at some point down the line. So it goes back to the maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. You can't control 7.5 billion people in perpetuity. But you can control 500 million, especially if those 500 million survive and are thankful and are willing to submit to anything in order to be protected. People always give away their security in order for the sake of people always give away their rights in order for the sake of security, false security. What happened in 9/11? We gave away our privacy, our rights, for the sake of false security, and now our government spies on us. So let's say if there's an evil intent, what they want to prevent or preclude is another French Revolution. So they keep talking about, for example, that the human body is 18% carbon. So when they talk about reducing the carbon footprint, whose footprint do you think they're trying to reduce? People that know what I'm talking about will understand what I'm talking about. There's a part in the Bible that says those who choose to listen will listen. At this exact moment, people that are listening, that have been saluting and complying, are there. That happened. What? So then you have a choice. Men and women in the military, humanity. We could either continue to comply to serpents or comply with God or the love in our hearts. That choice is crucial. The decision is even more crucial because we're talking about life and death at this point. But here's what gives me confidence. I was homeless 4 years ago, and I went through a very dark time in my life. I was lonely, and I cursed the existence of God. But he sent me angels by the name of a person that folded my clothes one time that made me kind of do a double take. And I did this, advice that I was getting from a lot of soldiers, veterans, Lieutenant Colonel Rick Belt in Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm going to wrap it up with a poem that I wrote on behalf of veterans to wrap this up. But it was random acts of kindness, of love that changed me, made me go from a bitter homeless guy into a husband. That's my primary role now. And a father, also my primary role. And I went from being 1 to 3. That's beautiful, right? From 1, like Adam, to 3 when he had Abel, Eve, and unfortunately, the 4th child kind of messed that all up, Cain. And we've been caning each other ever since then. So here's to praying, not for Cain, but for us to be able to understand these things. All right, I'm going to wrap it up with a poem that I wrote to veterans. And it's called Silent Salute. Every time I read this, I usually get a tear up. So I'm going to try really hard not to tear up this time. All right, let's see. Give me 1 second. By the way, if you could look this up while that's pulling up, you could look it up by Googling Silent Salute, silent and then salute plus Guion, and then you'll see the interview that I did with Rick Belt, and that's in that same article. It's pretty long. It's like a scroll. Yeah, just keep scrolling. All right, so you can look it up. It's at www.ghionguionjournal.com. And this poem is called Silent Salute. To the soldiers, hold on. To the soldiers who sacrificed, did their duty without asking, I express outrage against injustice over immortal wars and endless carnage. I'm speaking out for you in the process. Veterans in the end understand one thing. Their fellow men were never their enemies. To this day, fierce rivals from past conflicts embrace after the last bullets have been fired. Soldiers salute and do their duty that is best. The sorrows they go through alone, trauma induced by bodies and reduced humanity, only to come back home and encounter Satan's embrace. Flashbacks prompting cold sweats, bullets and droplets, too much for the mind to process. Those who die in wars are fortunate. It's the veterans, the survivors who carry the burdens of these remembrances. Fallen comrades and innocent children, indiscriminately swallowed whole by turbulence, tears mixing with bloodstains, cries drowned out by the battle drums. War is humanity's utmost blemish, concealed by propaganda and theatrics, patriotism birthing negligence. Our consciousness is subverted into ignorance as we enjoy disengagement's bliss. Veterans suffer depression's kiss. Politicians, profiteers in Hollywood, glorifying war horrors by bending reality, obfuscating suffering with special effects and rhetoric. But to the soldier, their truth is the opposite. Rat-a-tat-tat, shattering God's presence. Untold masses disappearing into graves in silence. We wave flags, thanking them for the service. They shiver alone, bearing the cost of compliance. Final judgments by way of triggers and buttons. Only to come back home, shock and awe replaced by shock trauma. Nightmares that never end, being continuously transported back into the mayhem. The battlefield is redrawn into the mountain synapses, piercing quietness with shrieks and horrors. Spouses who grow estranged, children unable to comprehend, concern pixelating into absence, loneliness the only friend that remains. The proud and the few become honest. Invisible wounds breaking cognizance. That is why so many end up homeless. Many more embracing suicide's cuddle. Despair muffles life and blends into darkness, to be met by society's mind-numbing indifference. We step over them daily. Once warriors turn into indigent, salutes being returned with diffidence. Yet in this silence I stand for you. May God forever bless you. Where you are broken, may you mend in fullness. Sergeant Black in D.C., Vietnam War survivor. Gunny Stevens in Greenville, Korean War survivor. Derek in Colorado, Iraq War survivor. Frank in Ankeny, Iowa, World War II survivor. Countless others who I have had the honor of sharing meals with. May your struggles be fleeting. May your blessings, bet your blessings be eternal. In silence, I salute you. You know, I was supposed to go to West Point, and I messed that up because I insisted on partying too much. I used to feel like the guy, the sergeant from Forrest Gump, who was supposed to die in battle, and he survived, and he just felt like he let that break him, and I felt like that for a long time because, you know, I wanted to be like my dad. thought I disappointed my dad, but I didn't join the military. And I thought also I spent on the sacrifices of my grandfathers and my grandmother. These things really played a huge part of my life. And I felt guilty for a long time. And then when I went through homelessness and I survived that and I came out of it, I felt guilty for that too. People will say, man, you're lucky you made it. I felt like I've escaped that which others cannot escape. And when I see homeless people to this day, it tears me up. And I choose sometimes to just look away because it's too hard. Because I was there. But all hardships have a meaning to them, I guess. It's because of that hardship, I gave away tribalism. I stopped looking at this world through the prism of black and white, through the prism of ideologies, through the division of Republicans and Democrats. Even though I love the fact that I'm Ethiopian, and I love the fact that I'm American. I'm an American citizen. At the core, I'm a human being. I'm a human being. And we're all human. We're all one. So here's to oneness. My sister always says oneness. Here's to oneness. And us overcoming injustice inclusively, collectively. For everyone that's watching this, either now or in the future, men and women that serve in various institutions, you still have a choice. People that work in the mainstream media, you have a choice to continue to serve serpents, or to stand up and say, no, I'm going to choose the love. Or if you're an atheist, I'm not preaching to you, choose love. If you work in politics, you can continue to serve the snake. I used to call it public servants. You can play games with words, but I think there's some politicians that are actually that might be honorable, but they just go along because they don't know how to. They choose to comply because they have no other choice. We all do this. We all submit to Babylon in this way. I used to work at Blue Line Hamilton, a defense consulting company. And on weekends, I would go march and protest against the Iraq War, like the level of cognitive dissonance that takes. But that's what we do. We give our hands to the mammon. We give our hands to serpents because we feel like to do the opposite. What does that mean? It's like the prisoner's dilemma. When I was taking my MBA in Johns Hopkins, it was the prisoner's dilemma. Because if you make a choice, you do so in a vacuum. You don't know how other people are going to make a choice. Then you might end up on the outs. But if we make the choice collectively, then there is no prisoner's dilemma. There's only freedom's redemption. So everyone, not just the military, not just the police, everyone, humanity, it is time to stop looking at these things through individual conquest and look at the collective whole. If not, that carbon footprint that I keep talking about, get ready for that reduction to start at some point. But I can sleep at night knowing this one thing. No matter how much devils with Luciferian societies plan in the darkness, God's light always comes out in the end. Just know that. This goes out to every person that I ever talked to in my life and witnessed in my life that were broken. The countless people that have depression and anxieties. You don't have that. It doesn't have you. I'm going to wrap it up with an advice that Lieutenant Colonel Rick Belt told me when I told him about all the hardships I was going through at that time. He said, you had to enjoy sorrow. And I responded back and I said, yeah, I know you just had to get through it and get better. She goes, no. You kind of missed out. You have to enjoy hardship and sorrow because that is the exact process that will give you eventually happiness. So you have to enjoy the totality of life. You can't pick and choose. Even when you're sad, choose to find happiness within it. I was like, wow, it really changed my mind. So we're going through hardship. I'm not saying enjoy it like pop champagnes, but just know that there's another day. You know, the end of days, you know what that means? It's not the end of humanity. End of days, die means heat, the end of heat. Now the world they keep saying that the world is warming up, global warming. The end of heat will come soon enough. But I fear is going to come after we go through the fire. If humanity acts collectively, that heat could be turned down because it can't ignore united human beings. That's why they keep dividing us into all these identities. Get rid of identities and hold hands with somebody that's next to you that is suffering just like you. Stop being like crabs in a barrel. If not, you know what comes next? It's like toads and a boiling water. You put them in a water that's boiling, it jumps out immediately. If you increase it very slowly, you know, incrementally, that frog or toad will die boiling without even taking any action. Before that board comes, unite and prosper, or stay divided and perish. Now, this goes out to my dad, my father, Fikamari Million. Everything you taught me, everything you taught me, I understand now. You're trying to train me for something, and I didn't understand. I used to rebel against you. You live on in my heart. This goes out to my grandfather, Million Tedler. Whatever it was, whatever the truth is, I pray that all sins are forgiven. That says love covers all sins. I pray that you rest in eternal peace. To my great grandfather, 5 generations removed, Ase Todros, I know that you went through a lot when Toabich passed away. You lost your rock, and you end up, making mistakes because you lost your rock. But I know you're united with her, Toabich, in heaven. And by the way, I have my own Toabich now. I was also by myself for a long time. My life and Ase Todros' life parallel a lot. When he was a teenager, he was being persecuted, and he ran off and went to a monastery, lived there for I don't know how many years, and it was there that his strength in God grew. He became very spiritual. Well, in my 40s, after I did one too many mistakes, I ran off to a monastery of sorts in Harvest Farm, Colorado, and that's where my strength grew, and that's where I eventually met up with my wife, Bethlehem. So Bethlehem is the angel that saved me. May we all have angels that save us. And that saving is not supernatural. It's love. Love is the weapon. Love is the shield. Be love and let love win. Thank you, everyone. May God bless humanity. God bless you. And we'll see what happens on the other side. Peace.